Hello, everybody. We're about to do a show. Please invite your friends. Tell everyone. Share this. Share it with your friends. We're broadcasting on 88.1 KPPP LP, 88.1 Fargo Moorhead. A Mexican Crossing Line is the name of the show. Let's talk about immigration. We're also putting this out on YouTube at Duke 1517, on Twitch at A Mexican Crossing Lines, and on Facebook at 88.1 Fargo Moorhead. It's going to be a great show, so share it out. If you missed the show, watch the rebroadcast. We're also on TikTok. Look for KPPP Radio on TikTok and follow us there.
Where else can people follow us on social media? We're on Twitter at media_PPP, on YouTube at Duke1517. We're on Twitch at Mexican Crossing Lines. Did I miss something? Our webpage.
Our webpage, yes.
And how they can contact us.
That's right, kpppfm.com, fmppp.com, that is, and you can contact us there and also make a donation to our nonprofit organization at kpppfm.com/donate.
If you can, help us share this to your different groups on your page. Sharing is caring, and we have a lot to talk about. So please make sure that this message reaches as many people as possible, because I have a particular take on immigration as the Mexican Crossing Lines that you're not going to find anywhere else. And I have not talked about this for quite some time. We've been doing a lot of self-care, gardening, traveling, all sorts of things over the summer. We just had our first low temperatures, so we were harvesting a lot of the stuff from our garden. But it has not been lost on me that the immigration issue at our southern border continues to be a hot topic. A topic that has its peaks and valleys, that has its ups and downs. But here we are again, and we're going to talk about it. We have to have an intelligent conversation about what's really going on. I want to start off the conversation by looking at a tweet that came out today, and it is from Welcome with Dignity. Now, folks, this is not the only group out there talking about immigration, and today meeting with the Biden administration officials regarding the administration's plan to resume MPP. MPP stands for Migrant Protection Protocols. If you're not familiar with that, basically what it means is the Stay in Mexico program, which was attacked during the Trump administration as being inhumane, as being unfair, because people were forced to wait in Mexico. And that was seen as cruel, and it was seen as something that was putting the lives of the immigrants in danger, because Mexico and the border towns that these people were creating, these tent cities in, were said to be very dangerous. And in fact, cities like Matamoros can be very dangerous for everyone, not just the people that are traveling through there. Cities like Tijuana, one of the most dangerous cities in the world. A lot of these border cities happen to also be crime capitals, right? Because of the nature of the flux of people going across the border. And wherever you have a border, there is going to be the trafficking and the smuggling of humans and drugs and weapons.
Exactly.
I mean, this is what happens across those borders. And especially, this has been a problem with the border, the southern border. At least it's been more talked about than the northern border. It doesn't mean that we don't have people crossing the border from Canada into the United States on a regular basis. And in fact, in a place here that borders with Canada practically, like North Dakota and Minnesota do, we have more immigrants crossing illegally into our states from Canada than we do from Mexico. We have more illegal immigrants roaming around in Minnesota and North Dakota from Canada that we don't even do anything about.
Exactly.
We don't try to round them up and deport them because most of those people look like Duke and not like me.
Exactly.
Okay? So the problem with immigration has been a problem for as long as I have existed on this earth, and it's been a problem that no administration has ever wanted to fix. And people today are infuriated with the Biden administration because they have been using Title 42. For those of you who don't know, Title 42 is the pandemic, basically the rule that says that you don't have to let anybody cross into your country if they may be carrying a deadly disease. And of course, during a pandemic, there is a concern that people could be entering the country with a deadly disease. So both Trump and Biden have used it to keep people out. Whatever you may think about the caravans, immigration policy, asylum seeking, human trafficking, or human smuggling, the reality is the vast majority of humans in the United States don't know jack squat about immigration law. They don't know how the system works. They don't understand how migration has happened over the decades and how it's changed. And if you don't understand any of those things, if you don't understand the route that people have taken through Mexico, through South America, from everywhere on this planet, including Europe, and as you heard recently, Haiti and other countries like Costa Rica and the Dominican Republic, and I could go on and on forever, then you won't understand why the things that are happening today are happening. So let me just break it down for you. I'm going to make this simple so that you can understand what's really going on. There's a reason, in my opinion, and this of course is just my opinion, but there's plenty of experts out there on immigration that would likely have to agree with what I am about to say. The immigration system has been broken, and no president has ever decided to fix it, to do anything to fix it, because they want it that way. Because it's cheaper, because it's easier to do nothing than what it would take to do something, because the issue itself is so contentious, because the way in which Democrats, Republicans, independents, and everything in between have argued and have never been able to agree on what, if anything, should be done to solve a problem no one really wants to fix, is why we can't fix this problem. But the underlying thing about this is that the reason why the United States has allowed this problem to fester and grow and get out of control, to now include tens of thousands of people traveling in caravans, many of whom do not have the money to pay a coyote and who are having to pay, because you got to pay to get across that border, in other ways that put them at risk for being trafficked sexually and otherwise, or becoming drug mules, or worse, is because this country has always needed a large number of cheap, disposable employees that can help the United States compete with other global economies that use slave labor, like China, like India, like Mexico. And they can't say that out loud. They can't tell you, you know what? We can't solve this problem of immigration because where will we get our slaves from?
Exactly. And also, it's the whole idea of cheap labor. We want products that don't cost much. And we're outraged that prices are going to go up now because of the supply chain issues that are going to come up. Everything's going to be more expensive. And it's been built into our system and our psyche that we like to buy cheap products, and we never really think about people really not getting paid or being taken care of. They're creating those products and creating the labor for those products.
The truth is that the Republicans don't want to fix it. In fact, the only president in my entire lifetime that it came close to giving a solution to the millions of people that need to have documentation in this country to live and work here legally was Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. And the only reason he did it was because we needed the cheap labor in this country. And Mexican immigrants, Mexicans coming here and living here and building businesses here, because a majority of entrepreneurial new business is coming from Mexican immigrants in general, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the largest businesses that have been started in this country happened through immigrants that came here and started those businesses. So, the new program that is not being talked about under the Biden administration, that does have some legs, that does have an opportunity to change the lives of millions of people during this period of time in this administration, like they did during the Reagan administration, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to have a pathway to citizen to live and work and pay taxes in the United States, is the pandemic program. That's not what their Biden administration is calling it, but that's what I'm calling it, because the pandemic created this opportunity. The pandemic created a pathway to citizenship for millions of people, and the only requirement is that you are working as a frontline worker during the pandemic. You don't even have to be sponsored by a U.S. citizen like your parent or your husband. You can sponsor yourself. All you have to do is show that you've been working in this country during the pandemic, and you can apply to become a citizen of this country. It is a remarkable program. I think that it's what we really should be talking about, what we should really be promoting. What people won't tell you is that all of the people that are coming here now should not be trying to seek asylum, which is a very small sliver of the people that are allowed to remain or to stay in our country awaiting a hearing. And the truth is that the vast majority of the people that apply for it do not qualify, nor will they qualify. So all of the people, these border advocates, these lawyers groups, these human rights groups that have been clamoring and deriding the Republican and now the Democrat administration because they're not letting people seek asylum, because they're not following the laws of asylum. They're not telling you, in all honesty, that their great border strategy to help people acquire legal status in the United States is to exacerbate a loophole in the immigration system through asylum seeking or through asylum requests. Plus, it just clogs it up. It's already a clogged system, and they're clogging it up more. And people, by the time their hearing comes up, they're going to be sent back. I mean, it's this dead-end solution that is not a solution. It's actually creating more problems. And that's what they're promoting, and that's what they're focusing on to deal with immigration. Like you said, I can't think of anyone who's done anything about immigration. It's just been talked about. When Reagan did something, I was quite young then, but it was like I wasn't even that much aware of what was going on. But I haven't heard anyone talk about it or actually really do anything, except when it came to DACA and DAPA, which we covered that. We did a bunch of shows on that with an immigration lawyer, and that is a dead-end program, too. That's not going to solve anything, really. No, and as a matter of fact, because it was only an executive order and it wasn't a real law that was passed by Obama to try to get himself reelected, because he made promises that he, too, was going to fix the immigration problem and then didn't, is that they've been trying to get rid of DACA. ever since it was created. And the reality is that there was a ruling not too long ago that basically says that no new people can sign up for DACA.
Yeah.
So the people that are already signed up for DACA, they can still keep signing up for DACA, or they can still go through the process and get their continuing temporary status to remain here. Basically, they're not put on the slate for deportation, but that, again, is not going to give a relief to that 250,000 people. And you know why there is Dreamers in the first place? Because our immigration system is so broken that the legal pathway for you to be sponsored by your parent or your U.S. citizen husband or wife so that you can become a citizen of the United States is so backlogged by a decade or longer for some people that the children that were applying in the queue for that program aged out of it before they got approved.
Wow.
That is why we even have Dreamers in the first place. And to that broken system that is decades long backlogs, you're going to add the asylum seeking people? That is the stupidest thing you could possibly do. I know that the people that are working on this, many of them who are immigration lawyers, simply are not specialized in that area of work and will not answer why they're taking a pathway that they know will give results that are favorable to only about 3% of their clients.
Well, it's a stopgap. It's like it buys time.
It is a lucrative stopgap.
Yeah, and they stay working and have a bunch of clients, and then you have to deal with a bunch of people that are sitting in limbo until years and years later.
Do you want to know what is the most infuriating thing about this thread? Will you throw up that the tweet? Check this out, guys. The Welcome with Dignity Twitter thread about this. If you're curious to read what they talk about, and they did not have an actual meeting with the Biden administration. They actually just had a Zoom call.
Okay.
So in this tweet, they are announcing very angrily that all of these border advocacy groups had a meeting with the Biden administration officials today, and they walked out in protest because Biden says he's going to reinstate the migrant protection protocols, which really means remain in Mexico policy, which he said during his campaign trail was inhumane. So why would he be reinstating it? Saying that they don't buy the excuse that a recent court decision forced them to do this, and that they put out a statement basically saying that this program puts people at risk by making them remain in Mexico, and that there have been thousands of violent attacks on people that are traveling through Mexico to try to come to the United States, and that they will not be complicit in the decades-long systems that simply warehouse people that come into this country illegally in detention facilities and put them through these very inhumane and dangerous treks and to live in the shadows in this country when they have a right to seek asylum, and they're going to demand that this right be preserved. Well, let me tell you something. What do you think happened to all of the hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers that have come in since 2018 that have been supported by, accompanied by, and funded by these human rights groups? They filled up the detention centers.
Yeah.
That's where they went. They even trained them at the border on what they were going to have to go through enduring being in the detention centers until someone could get them out. So you have advertently or inadvertently been feeding the system of detention centers, which are private prison industries that make billions of dollars. So The people in this tweet, the groups that are now protesting against the Biden administration policies, were and that are complaining that the Biden administration has renewed contracts with big private prison companies like the Geo Group. You helped make that happen. You created an overabundance of these people coming into the country to seek asylum through a process that is just going to warehouse them and likely will spit them out and deport them when they don't qualify for that asylum in the years to come. Mm-hmm. Isn't that also inhumane?
Definitely.
Isn't it also inhumane to basically eschew hundreds of thousands of people into this other form of exploitation by all of these immigration attorneys processing their asylum claims that are going to go nowhere but a dead end? Isn't it also inhumane for all of those people to have to pay to be let out of detention facilities and have to pay monthly fees for those ankle bracelets to these private companies and to the companies that monitor where they are while they're awaiting their asylum hearing that could take anywhere from 1 to 5 years, but now with the new influx of people, could be even longer, only to end up at the end of that whole thing by being deported back to your country? I think it is.
I think it is,
Some
too.
people might disagree with my take on it.
Oh, and you bring up a good point, the inhumanity of all that. Plus, I think that's something that's really lacking in all of this is that there's so much anger, or even seen some on the threads of our live streams, so much anger about peoples or calling them illegals and all these things. And it's like, we're talking about human beings. And people are suffering. These people are suffering. We have a lot of suffering in this world. And our policies haven't reflected what the United States says it stands for because we really don't believe it. And yet there's the immigration has built this country and has changed over the years. There's been so many restrictive things that have happened. And now we have other countries. We need to be in communication with other countries. There needs to be a larger scale of cooperation and work on dealing with this human crisis. This is a human crisis. When I saw the Haitians at the border in Mexico and Texas, I thought this is such a crisis. And I saw people so angry, all the anger that comes out, and that doesn't solve anything. There's no solutions built in that.
No, but let me tell you something. There is hope for the first time in my entire lifetime, besides the Reagan administration amnesty. This is the first time that a president has created a pathway to citizenship that people don't have to use anybody else to go through, and that they can apply for by simply working during the pandemic as an essential worker during the pandemic. And a lot of people that have crossed into this country undocumented are doing that right now. Mm-hmm. And a lot more people are going to be needed, because the other thing that we have to talk about with regard to the immigration issue that we have right now is the labor shortage.
Exactly.
The labor shortage.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what they're talking about? They're talking about a group of people that refuse to go back to work even though we took away their unemployment. They still aren't going back to work. They've left industries in the dust, the service industries, the restaurant industry, the hotel industries. They are breaking. They are broken. And they may never come back the same. Do you know why? Because there's a lot of reasons why going through a traumatic experience a year or longer, which we've already been, we're into this how many months now?
Lots. 18,
we're going
20,
on.
yeah.
We're going to probably exceed 2 years of being under, rolling lockdowns and pandemic surges. That changes people's perspective. Lots of people ended their marriages. Lots of people completely changed their careers and their lives. Lots of people had near-death experiences. Lots of people changed their politics, changed their heart, had come to Jesus moments, and never want to go back to that job that they were doing that was a soul-sucking, experience for them up until the time that they had to stay home and think about their lives.
That's right.
And had the time to meditate about their lives and their futures and what they wanted to do with it. And guess what? They're never going back.
That's right. And there's a lot of danger, too. The people that worked through COVID, we were still getting food. We were still getting products. We were getting the essentials that we needed to live. That's because people are out there working in an environment that's very contagious. And it still is. And it's like I understand taking a step back and go, wow, it's really nice not to be in danger of dying every day. This is a lot better, being here at home and doing things I can build in my life.
And if before working in these kinds of front-facing, dealing with the public types of jobs, like working in a restaurant or working in an airline or working in a hotel or working in a grocery store or a pharmacy or what have you, or being an Uber driver, if it wasn't stressful enough to have poor tippers and rude customers and demanding Karens in your face during this pandemic, the way that people have behaved, where your job requires you to be masked and vaxxed and no jujitsu, that will make you rethink your entire career choices. So, folks are permanently going to change what they do in their lives because they've had time to think about it. And then there's the nearly 1 million people that have died. I know they're telling you it's about 700,000. It's more. And they know that it's a lot more.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to conservatively say around 1 million people have died. You know what? About hundreds of thousands more of those people that survived are permanently disabled in one way or another. From COVID, from surviving COVID, having long-term COVID symptoms that we don't even know, what it's going to cause. And those are the people that survived having pretty severe cases of COVID. We're not even touching all of the people that got COVID and that survived and that had really mild symptoms or no symptoms at all, because about a third of those people are having recurring problems due to COVID or onsets of problems that they never even had before. So there is a large portion of our population that was simply taken out of the workforce. The United States has two problems it has never wanted to fix. One is making their cheap labor legal. The other is making the drugs that they consume legal. Y'all are going to have to figure that out, America. You're going to have to figure those two problems out. And this is the time to do it. Because the influx of people, okay, listen to me, hear me out. The influx of people, even the Republicans, even the MAGAs out there saying, we don't want those people here. When everyone walks out of your business and nobody will wash them dishes and nobody will cook that food and nobody will run your businesses, you're going to start looking at Maria and Juan and going, they're willing to do it.
Yep.
I guess if I want to survive, I'm going to have to use this cheap labor, because you won't survive unless you help them. You won't survive. Your businesses won't survive unless you help each other. I think that's what's going to be happening in the upcoming future. Look at what's happening with organized labor right now. We have had a resurgence in organized labor and strikes in this country like I haven't seen in the entirety of my life.
Yeah.
The whole time I've been alive, we have been killing labor rights. We have been making states into right-to-work states. We have been making workers' comp less and less
coverage.
In fact, North Dakota has one of the worst workers' comp laws in the entire country. So when you take into account that you have been biting away at the protections for workers, at the pensions for workers, at the rights for workers, at the unions of workers, at organized labor in general, taking and taking and taking and taking and taking, and never raising the minimum wage in this country. and you compound that with the dead and the dying and the sick, and you compound that with a pandemic, you get the perfect storm. Lots of things are going to be changing. And I would humbly ask all of the human rights groups, all of the immigration lawyers, all of these organizations, many of whom have been raging against me for telling the truth about what's really going on with their asylum-seeking scam. That's what I feel that it is, because it is taking advantage of a bunch of people, both the immigrants that they are telling to seek asylum, that they're schooling on how to seek asylum, and the American public that doesn't know enough about immigration policy to know what's going on here, to please consider what is right in front of you right now. And instead of telling people to keep availing themselves of an asylum process that is a dead end, tell people to avail themselves of the existing pathway to citizenship that is going to give people an opportunity to work, live, and pay taxes legally in the United States for decades to come. That is the T on immigration. I'd like you to follow us on all of our social media platforms, because we're going to be talking about these difficult topics here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
Thank you very much for being with us here at 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good evening and God bless.